Let's go!
What really stood out was having that kind of versatility in the run game and the passing game.
PHL Nation, we're going through all the film of most of LSU's college football transfer portal additions. Comment below who stood out to you the most. And let's kick it off here with the Oklahoma tight end, Bauer Sharp. Then we get to hear he does a really good job of recognizing zone coverage and finding a pocket of space and being a good big target for his quarterback. Look at this really good ball location. This is the second quarterback in this game, and he's able to make this one. Good job by the QB getting rid of this football really quickly, seeing that it's zone coverage. And once again, Tennessee playing very soft at this point in the game because, well, it's a blowout. But look at this. He, after the catch, does break tackles, right? That's a really good job to fall forward for a few extra yards. So at the end of this video, I will share one very important fact that is very important when it comes to discussing this Oklahoma offense. So you see Jackson Arnold, he actually started this game, looks off to the right, works back to the left. I'm not sure if he needed to jump for this ball, but he did. And look at this run after the catch ability. Makes this guy miss. 9 is one of the hardest hitters you will ever see in the SEC. Falls forward for an extra 5 here. Really, really, really good stuff. So we take a look at his overall numbers this past season. 40 catches. He was one of 4 SEC tight ends to get 40 catches. So Bauer Sharp, one of 4 SEC tight ends to have 40 catches. You know, on this rep, you would like him to be a little bit bigger here on this in-breaker. It's a good play by the DB, if we're just being honest. But, you know, 40 catches was a lot in this bad Oklahoma offense. Now, there is a little extra asterisk that I want to include into that. But at the same time, he was also very unlucky. There were instances like this where you see that the Tennessee DBs, they had actually been a really good red zone defense this year. They were trying to switch this off. The corner says, hey, I'll pick up Sharp. You pick up the inside receiver. And it's miscommunicated. They both actually go to the inside receiver, and Sharp is wide open here. So this should have been a touchdown. He only had 2 touchdowns last year. I have no idea why Hawkins didn't just throw this to him for an easy wide open touchdown. So there was a lot of instances where he was missed, and when this was one of them. So Oklahoma's most impressive road game was the upset victory over Auburn. And, well, Bauer Sharp was amazing in this game. As you can see, this is a huge catch and run. Ball hits him right in the chest. But the thing I want you to see is the yard after catch ability. Now, of course, he was wide open here, but the speed to run away from a fast linebacker here and keep his feet shows you some tackle breaking ability. The problem was this play was wiped out due to an offensive pass interference penalty, and it was a good call. All right, I want LSU to add this play to their playbook because it's a play that nobody can stop, and the Kansas City Chiefs have mastered it. Tom Brady and Gronk really brought it to the NFL, so that's from my NFL channel, Power Hour NFL. So you're acting like you're blocking, but you're actually throwing the football to the tight end on a little screen. Notice everybody is, to the left side here. You're looking left, and you're working backside here. And here's the thing that happens. 70 right here, 78, 79, has an easy block to make. All we need you to do is just get a piece of 35, seal him to the outside, but he just whiffs him. Okay, so now this should be a big gainer, but Sharp has to make a miss to turn this play into something. And what does he do? Well, he throws him off of him, okay? Kind of a lousy effort from 35, but take a look at this. I mean, get off me, bro. It's really, really, really good stuff. So this happened some of the time for him this past year where teams really focused in on him because, well, he led the team in receptions. He kind of became their guy. And you'll see that he is drawing 2 defenders here in the back of the end zone. The thing is, this should have been thrown here to the left side into the flat. Once again, this is a true freshman quarterback. Throw it into the flat, you're probably scoring. But instead, this is part of what Sharp had to face last year. All right, so Oklahoma scores on a 2-point conversion here. The score is 22-21. This 2-pointer counts, okay? Now, this ends up being a scramble touchdown, but on a had-to-have-it play, Garrett Nussmeier would have thrown this ball to Sharp for the huge 2-point conversion here, okay? So you'll see he's running an in-breaker here. Does a good job creating some separation. And look at this. He does a good job getting into the body of this DB to make him think he could be running it out. And bang, he gets off of him. And right here, this ball should have been thrown. Now, it's difficult because, there's an umpire right here. But this ball, throw a top shelf right there, that is a 2-pointer. But, of course, Hawkins, he does eventually roll out here to the right side and scores a 2-point conversion. Freaking-ridiculous stuff. And come on, I got to show this. I mean, this was redunculous. And he did get in. Worth the highlight. Who cares about a boring throw over the middle? His only 50-plus yard game was this one versus Ole Miss. And this is a case for all tight ends. So much of what you do is based on coverage bust or leaks at the tight end position. So, yes, he is wide open, but it's because of his versatility you're able to get him wide open, right? There, he is a tight end, but he was actually lined up in the backfield as a personal protector, and he picks up a nice gain here. So, LSU's going to miss Mason Taylor the most when it comes to these 3rd and 4th and mediums, right? That's basically his legacy as an LSU Tiger. These had-to-have-it kind of plays. And right here, sits at the sticks, gets over into this window for Arnold to throw, catches it, and then falls forward, right? If he would have been stone cold stopped right there, he's not getting this first down. That little turn allows you to move the sticks. So his only power forward touchdown came in this game. Now, I will be honest. It is so hard to score touchdowns when all the other receivers for Oklahoma are hurt. So one very important thing to remember about Sharp is he kind of became the go-to guy, which is what he won't be at LSU. So it was a very weird offense. You see he pushes this guy off of him, finds the open space here. They're running mesh over the middle. You could see Ole Miss picks it up pretty quickly on this 3rd and medium. So this is a good job by Arnold working all the way to the back corner of the end zone and seeing Sharp wide open, okay? So Sharp leaks out right here, and this is a really good throw, but an even better catch, right? He almost leads Sharp too far, and take a look at this toe tap right here. Catches it at its highest point, 1, 2, bang. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful stuff. So right here, he gets unlucky not once, but twice. You'll see him at the top of the screen right here playing a DB with inside leverage, okay? It is hard to beat a DB with inside leverage in the spot, okay? But guess what? He beats him over the middle, and this should have been another touchdown. But there was a lot of pressure, of course, on the left side. So he gets unlucky here. Arnold then makes a really good pass rusher, and Princely missed twice. Okay, baggy undershirt. I've never understood it. Now, we get to here, and he's open again for a touchdown. Arnold takes the shorter throw right here. It's a really accurate throw for a touchdown, so that should have been 2 tutties for Sharp. Once again, the better plays on tape for him are routes over the middle, which is where Garrett really likes to throw the football. Outbreakers, not quite the same type of effectiveness, but still pretty solid, as you can clearly see here. Alrighty, so this is going to be a big part of LSU's offense next season. Play action fake, and guess what? If they're playing quarters, you got to hit them over the middle, and that's exactly what they do here. This was a painful offensive game from Texas, and he has to catch that football with an umpire right in front of him. All right, first in Valonia, and Texas is just putting it on Oklahoma. One thing to keep in mind when it comes to Sharp's production is this offensive line was just atrocious. Really, really, really bad. And there were quite a few instances where the pressure would just be in the face of a quarterback before Arnold could, or Hawkins could throw him open. Now, this is some really good stuff here from Sharp. You'll see, obviously, the tackles are getting beat, and this ends up being a sack, okay? Now, watch what happens here. He is running an over route, okay? So from here on this 1st and 20, you can see he's running an over, and then he sees that there's nowhere for him to go on this over, right? Inside leverage, there's a safety right here. So he finds the open spot right here, okay? Obviously, Travis Kelce is the GOAT at this.
I sold up in booze.
So, obviously, if you had better protection, maybe you could find him open. Also, these kinds of things are better with chemistry. So, that's just not going to be the case just right off the jump with Garrett Nussmeier. Now, it's not all sunshine and rainbows when it comes to him as a receiver. You know, some of the production was because of the lack of receiving options, right? So just by default, you're going to get more targets if all your top receivers get hurt. Then there were opportunities like here versus Alabama to make this catch. This is a very difficult catch because the throw wasn't good. This is honestly a really bad throw, all things considered. Anything over here, you are scoring a huge touchdown. Now, still, you would like to see the tight end be able to track this ball and make that catch. Alrighty, so this is a weird negative to bring up, but it is the negative plays. I mean, this guy has been involved in some absolute disasters for Oklahoma. All right, it is 2nd and New Roads. And if you do the smart thing right here, you could make it 3rd and manageable. Instead, he makes it 3rd and Shreveport here, cutting all the way back for no reason whatsoever. You're not outrunning this Ole Miss defense, and this becomes an absolute disaster. So you have to be smarter. So here's Brian Kelly talking about Sharp, and let's have an honest conversation about blocking.
You know, if you watch him closely, I mean, some of the things they did with him in the passing game, you know, we've seen from other tight ends, right? But if you really look at his body of work, it's the physicality in the run game. Pulling, you know, blocking tackles, out on the perimeter. Love his physicality in the run game. Still, you know, a very good athlete. Came in as a quarterback, you know, at Southeast Louisiana, and certainly has the ability to do some really good things in the passing game for us as well. But I think what really stood out was having that kind of versatility in the run game and the passing game.
So now we get to the spicy portion of today's video. Am I going to push back here on Brian Kelly when it comes to Bauer Sharp as a blocker? Well, I will tell you that when this quote actually hit social media, a lot of the Oklahoma fans and media laughed at Brian Kelly because they think he is a terrible, terrible, terrible blocker. I don't know if I'd go that far. Now, why am I qualified to talk about this? Well, on Power Hour SEC, that's why this breakdown is so deep. I had so many plays already stripped here because I did an Oklahoma film study, I believe, on 8 of their 12 games this year, something like that. So I have watched a lot of him, and there are reps like this where he doesn't have to block anyone. And then there's reps like this where you're going up against Tennessee's really good defensive line. Look at this pass set. He gets low right here on this little RPO, and he gets a really nice base going up against a pretty big dude. And obviously in this spot, you just want to try and get this guy down as quick as you possibly can. And that's really, really, really good stuff. But it's Jackson Arnold, so you know he's going to miss a receiver. All right, let's go back to the Auburn game. You get a little bit of a sugar huddle where you're hurrying up to the line of scrimmage. One thing I will say is if you're getting ready to block down, the one thing you want to make sure you don't do is give away that you're getting ready to block down on this seal, right? Because there are a lot of quick pitches out of Tripp's bunch to the Tripp's bunch side with the running back. So it's not as important because this was a sugar huddle and you're just running to the line of scrimmage, you're just running a play. But you don't want to give away that you're sealing this guy. You see, he's looking directly at him. That can give away what you're doing, right? Because if I see that there is a down block right here, more than likely it's going to be a run or an option to the right side. You want to be careful with that stuff. But watch this block. He gets 96. I actually think this is Philip Blitty, the defensive tackle that LSU pursued. And look at that. I mean, that is redunculous. And that block opened up this ginormous chasm right here. Really, really, really good stuff right there from Sharp. So this is the very next play. Take a look at this. Now, once again, smaller edge, safety, linebacker type right here. Bang. I love the technique here. Look at this, keeping that base good, short, choppy feet, and watch. Bam. All right. Good low strike right here. And then he seals him to the inside. He's not allowing him to cross face. This should have been a hands to the face penalty to add on the end of this run. And he makes a big block right there. So I've shown you some really good reps, but the honest truth is he is wildly inconsistent as a blocker. You'll see him here on a second level block. He gets ragdolled, right? This is something that happens quite a bit to him. And what I mean by ragdolled is, as you can see, this is not the worst block in the world, but he does get thrown off to the side relatively easy as a blocker. Now, remember, he had the big block in this Alabama game to spring Arnold earlier that should have at least tied the game. So he had a really good block in this game. You just needed to be a little bit more consistent on a down-to-down basis. Now, I'm a little bit more lenient on tight end blocking because as a tight end, you're asked to do a whole lot. And in this offense overall, this unit really couldn't get rhythm with all the changes in quarterbacks. Here he is at fullback, and remember, at that quasi-fullback, he had a pre-snap motion and led the way. We now have an advantageous matchup, a nickel corner going up against a tight end right here, and we want to get this corner blocked here to the outside. Now, this tight end doesn't help the cause here. He's getting ragdolled. And look at this from Sharp. It's a little too patty-cakey, and he just misses him, and Jackson Arnold does a good job running through this DB for a first down, okay? In this Tennessee game, they asked him to do a lot of difficult perimeter blocking, and this play right here was really, really, really good stuff, okay? Look at that. Good job getting the hands inside the shoulder pad. They're never going to really call you for holding in that spot. You do want to let go a little bit sooner, but good stuff. But you also had plays like this, and I'll be completely honest with you. You can check it out on Patreon. This Tennessee game was not great for him as a blocker, and this was probably one of the bigger misses. This is just a massive loss when you're down 16. I mean, you just got to have more there. You just do. Now, once again, there is so much space, and you are going up against a quicker player, so this isn't the easiest block in the world, especially considering you're blind to where the running back actually is here. But once again, it's so hard. This block is really, really, really hard, but it does need to be better. Oh, what do we make of this? First thing, I do think LSU needs to bring in another tight end, just so you don't get into the same problem you had last year where one tight end is having to play all the snaps, which was the same problem for Bauer Sharp. And the thing that's really exciting for Sharp's vantage point is this Oklahoma offense was abysmal, right? Worst quarterback room in the SEC. Arguably the worst offensive line in the SEC. Arguably the worst set of running backs in the SEC. Arguably the worst set of receivers. Their top 5 receivers all got hurt towards the beginning of the season. So he's going to LSU. Obviously, our offensive environment is going through fluctuations, but the big thing is he's going to be playing with the quarterback who is really good at the thing that Bauer Sharp is really good at, which is in breakers. Now, obviously, this is a wheel to the outside, but still, I think him and Garrett Nussmeier actually fit pretty well together. Overall, as you guys have seen, the down-to-down blocking needs to get better. Let's go!
I was cooking. Oh,
Nic Anderson, are You kidding me? Obviously, LSU brought in Barion Brown, and they brought in former New Orleans legend Destin Hill. So maybe Anderson signs with LSU, maybe he doesn't. But I'm going to go ahead and release this film study because I do think he brings something to this room. All right, so let's break down the positives and negatives potentially of Anderson joining LSU. So you get a play action fake. And the hard thing about this eval is we only have 1 year of tape to go off of. So last year he was hurt all season for Oklahoma. He redshirted as a true freshman in 2022. So the only tape you're watching right now is from 2023. So the one thing that just kind of sticks out at you with Nic Anderson when you watch him is he does seem like a near one-to-one replacement for C.J. Daniels. Now, of course, Daniels was older and overall just a more productive player, but that was Daniels playing competition at Liberty, and obviously Anderson played in the Big 12. So you see him with that vertical catch, and now after hitting him with that vertical, obviously Oklahoma blowing out a not-so-great Tulsa team, what do you do off of that? Well, you run a comeback, right? I don't know if this is just a pure all-out option route. You play vertical, and if they're that far off of you, just come right back. Obviously, Dillon Gabriel all day to throw, and he's able to come back and make a really nice catch. Now, as far as Yak is concerned, he's got some Yak ability. It's not obviously like truly something spectacular. But you see that he can make guys miss. And that's obviously a very, very good thing. And he's able to turn this ball into a touchdown. So we get to hear this is obviously a big part of what LSU does, which is just split zone action, right? They do it a lot with their tight ends, but they also like to do it with their receivers. Obviously, it was a bigger deal with Jaden and Malik, but this type of red zone guile and creativity is something you can do with Nic Anderson. And now let's see if he can power through for a tutty. He can, and it's a touchdown. All right, so here we go. Play action fake. You get to the top of the screen. DB has the most innermost leverage you will ever see. So you really got to attack this blind spot right here, and that's exactly what he does. He gets his DB turned around. And once again, this was when Oklahoma had a decent quarterback and an actual decent offensive line and an actual decent play caller. So there was a lot, obviously, that changed from 1 year to the next with this Oklahoma offense. So now, remember, same drive, had the comeback route. Now let's go vertical. Okay, there's no safety in the deep middle of the field. DB is basically giving you this post, all right? So you act like you might be running the same exact route, attack that blind spot, but you're actually gone. Okay, so really, really, really good stuff. Obviously, it's cut off here, but you get a good throw right here from Dillon Gabriel to Nic Anderson, who obviously was left alone. Obviously, there was a coverage bust mixed in there as well, and boom, walk-in tutty. And obviously, you know, when you get this angle, the corner played this deep over, and that obviously kept Anderson wide open. So that was a little bit of a coverage bust, but it's still good to see overall that he feels comfortable making these deep catches. And obviously, this was the biggest play of his career. Red River game, obviously, back corner of the end zone. Gabriel works to the backside. They leave him wide open in the back corner. And look, I know he's wide open, but at least you have a receiver coming in with this big game experience. All right, so here we go. Play action, work to the backside, just burn this corner. And look at this get off at the top of the screen. Little shake to get this DB on his heels. And now he's just gone. All right. Good job by Gabriel starting off looking right to get the safety off over the top. Man, really good stuff. Once again, it is amazing how much this Oklahoma offense just fell apart from 1 year to the next. But easy pitch and catch touchdown. You love to freaking see it. All right. So one minor, and it is minor, red flag with Anderson is a lot of these catches are just so unfreaking believably wide open. So it would have been nice to see what he would have done in a more hostile offensive environment this year. But man, I want you to see his after the catch ability. Even though he is so unfreaking believably wide open, You would like to see every power forward receiver make this guy miss. But, I mean, he really has some wiggle to his game at 6'4", and you could see DB can't make the play. Really, really, really good stuff. He's able to maintain his balance and pick up more yards after the fact. You like to see it. Now, could there have been more yards out of this? Maybe so, but still good stuff. All right, now this is actually a play that LSU runs a lot of, or just this philosophy, which are flood concepts, right? Verticals and then overs replacing the verticals. So the vertical takes this DB with them. You have a shallow over here, and then you have an over in the intermediate. And actually, instead of it being a shallow, it's a vertical and out and up, and then you have the over route right behind it. It's a good man coverage beater. It's also a good zone coverage beater. And look at that. Bang. Okay, we do run a lot of these types of things. We did it in particular, Kyron running the over, so you do like to see that. All right, 3rd and 11. Here he is going up against a DB who has inside leverage. Okay, you could see that Anderson is on the hash, and the DB's left foot is to the inside of this hash mark. Okay, so it's going to be very difficult for Anderson to get to the inside right here, and that's exactly what he does. Good little shimmy. The best at this in the NFL right now might actually be Brian Thomas Jr. He actually did this a lot last week versus the Jets. Actually, I just got done cutting a film study. A little bit better of a throw he's scoring, but still good stuff. So if you want to see that BTJ film study, it's floating in the top right corner of your screen. Now, we get to this. And, is Nic Anderson a true single-digit playmaker? Oh, yeah. You guys know how I am about these single digits. So I would love to see him get that number 4 uniform, switch him out with CJ Daniels. Good job making the safety miss. Now, obviously, this ball hits you in stride. I would have liked to have seen this sixth, okay? So, once again, is he fast? Oh, yeah. He's got juice, right? It's not that elite tier speed, but you don't need to have that. So if you were to come in and play a CJ Daniels like role, one thing Daniels did a good job of is getting other people open. Obviously Malik is the all-time best at this. You can see he's running a vertical, so there was a motion to stack these receivers. Anderson's job right here is to sell a corner post, and you really have to sell this to draw both of these DBs with you so we can hit this deep out. So watch what happens here. Even after having that big drop, he's able to run a post. It gets cut off here, but you'll see exactly what happened, all right? Because this post drew so much coverage, you can see the corner is running with Anderson. He was supposed to be right over here. Anderson's getting picked up by the safety. So getting other people open, running when the ball really isn't intended to go for you is also something that you look for from a receiver. So he plays hard. And look, Anderson had some low moments as well. Obviously, Bedlam rivalry game. Man, these go balls are things that LSU just missed last year. Nic Anderson, as you guys have seen, deep ball tracking has been pretty good, but a lot of those are wide open here. He burns the DB really badly, and Dylan Gabriel has him in stride, and, well, he should have caught this. He also, this is, a problem that Chris Hilton's had, he also really didn't even need to leave his feet. Right? You could see he's already starting to dive for it. You could see about right here what I think happened. He was in the middle of, hey, am I going to dive for this or am I just going to run underneath it and score a touchdown? Even if you just run underneath it and your momentum takes you to the ground, that's fine as well. And obviously, when it comes to separation, it's solid, right? That's not truly his game. Overall, I do feel he is a somewhat decent separator. On this route, it's a go route into the boundary, so it's tough to really create any room. This would have been an absolutely positively ridiculous catch, but he gets clamped down here. Is this catchable? Maybe so. Okay. But still. All right, and then on this very next rep, once again, 3 is a good player. Inside leverage, we're running, a deep over. So let's pick it up here. Obviously, this deep over, we want to on this over with the corner right on us, you want to sell vertical, do something called a stair step technique. So you want to lean kind of against this DB to make this DB think that you might be going vertical and then jerk out this way. So this could have been better to create some separation, but 3 is all over him. Is there a little tug right here? Maybe so. They're never calling this in Bedlam at home. And, you know, you would like to see a little bit more separation on the deep over right there. But still, semi-catchable ball. And there is some of this on his tape. Now, Nic Anderson's blocking grades are a little bit of a mixed bag. It's obviously not why you're bringing him in, but it is a key part of any offense, right? A lot of the best LSU receivers are also good blockers, and this honestly is pretty physical. You would like to have seen this block right here to be a little bit more upfield, but sometimes with these blocks into space, you could get a little too sealy. In other words, just get too parallel to the hash, and the guy can come around and make this play. So this honestly is not a bad rep at all. Blocking, it could have been better. Yeah, it could have definitely been cleaner the more I look at it, but it's still really good stuff on the outside. And here's another good blocking rep on this run play in the goal line. Now, 8, I've watched a decent amount of him. He's not the most willing run defender, but man, that's really, really, really good stuff right there. Love the physicality. So, what do we make of Nic Anderson? Well, he does fill one massive void for LSU, and it's just something anecdotal, is that this team is very short, okay? They're short at running back, and I'm talking about like physical height. They're short at quarterback, and they're also short at wide receiver.
Ultimately, I would probably like to play corner.
Mansoor Delane commits to LSU. Is he bringing DBU back? Are you freaking kidding me? I believe after watching him for a full day, I'm wondering why didn't he go to the NFL? Y'all, this guy can flat out play. And at this juncture, I can comfortably say he is the best defensive back in LSU's DB room. This was such a massive pickup, a guy that could play corner and at the same time read the game like a safety. This was actually a play at corner, but it was kind of safety-ish to come over here off the deflection, showing off the ball skills and getting multiple feet inbound to secure it. Wow. That's honestly the first thing that really stands out to me when I watch him. And by the way, you want to stay till the end because you're about to be blown away by this young man's football IQ, okay? I'm telling you, like, your mind will literally go kaboom knowing what we've had to go through these past couple seasons at DB. A guy that's actually going to go out there and make some plays. Look at this amazing INT versus one of the best passing attacks in all of college football. Are you kidding me? It's one of my favorite things about him is this guy just makes plays. I mean, I understand Ty Alexander did some of that this year as far as INTs are concerned, but man, this is definitely one of the best LSU defensive backs, at least since 2019 LSU. Now, once again, this was a clear overthrow and easy INT, but the guy just has a knack for finding the football. Now, here he is as a younger player in the red zone. You can see he's showing press man, and then at the snap, he bails out and just stays with a bigger receiver, and they're throwing up a jump ball here on the road in the ACC. And watch his play. I mean, he's going to be angry at himself that he did not bring this football out down. Look at him catch this football at its highest point. I mean, he almost brought that down, but just the ball skills, ball location, ball tracking is ridiculous. Now, let's show you another angle of this one. I mean, this is very impressive, okay? Man, it's uncanny how good he is at timing his jumps. Right, so 3rd and 8, and I love DBs that do this, okay? So many defensive backs in this spot. They're just playing so conservatively, right? Because you're up 17-0, and yes, in a rivalry game, bowl eligibility on the line, you don't want to get beat over the top. But Mansoor Delane is like, hey, it's 3rd and 8. the chances of them actually just running a go ball is very, very, very small. So he bails, and then he actually sits and waits for this receiver, and he jumps all over it, right? Quarterback is thinking, hey, we're going to get some good soft press man coverage or just some soft coverage. But look at Delane. Now, obviously, the camera work wasn't the best. Just smother this wide receiver, snag it. I mean, just look at this. I mean, he is just straight up snatching this football out of the air, vice gripping this thing, and not only that, keeping his feet and going the other way. I'm telling you right now, I mean, when it comes to ball skills, I understand this is a bold statement, but definitely the best DB at LSU since Derek Stingley Jr. when it comes to high pointing and making those types of plays. I mean, just look at this, all right? Quarterback just staring this down. Obviously, that helps out in this situation. Ball also, I think, slightly got deflected. You could see this ball had some nasty English on it. So that makes this catch even more impressive. Yeah, it does look like it got tipped. So there is some nasty English on this, and that makes this catch even better. And by the way, this receiver, Micah Hudson, just entered the portal. He was thinking about declaring for the NFL draft. So this is an SEC caliber receiver that he just put into a blender. The thing that I like about him is he is physical. Look at him up here on Concepcion, a really, really talented NC State wide receiver. Watch his hit on third and medium. Bang! Okay, just good old-fashioned smash-mouth tackle football, baby. Love to see it. Now, this next run fit is even more impressive, and that's what makes him very interesting because he does have safety experience, right? Obviously, you heard at the beginning he prefers to play corner. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Once again, this quote will blow your mind in just a moment. But look at him take on this block. Obviously, got tripped up there, but he still fights through it, and bang, physical. You freaking love to see it. Mansoor! And then right here, okay? Guy crossing, middle of the field. These hits have gotten tougher, right? And look at this. Look at this. Bang! All right? Man, this is even more impressive considering 8 led his head into Delane, right? That should be target. I don't know why they never call targeting on offense. They should. And Delane, perfect form tackle. Obviously, Jacoby Stevens was really good at that. Look at that. I mean, man, I love the fact that he's also an enforcer. Here we go, NC State game again, all right? He is guessing. Obviously, look at the cerebral nature of this. There's so many instances where LSU is just so late to react. Obviously, he has some responsibilities here on the receiver. He reads that this is a run. It might have been a run blitz the whole way. I don't know. But he's unblocked, and look at him just knife in and make this play. Love to see it. Look at that. Bang. Perfect form tackle, stop him right in the tracks. It looks just like the play you just saw, and it's just ridiculous. It is ridiculous stuff. So this is something you'll see a lot of in the SEC, right? Quick screens to the outside. Watch what happens here, okay? Both of these guys are unblocked. Delane gets through this block, takes it on physically, keeps his outside shoulder free not to give up the sideline, fins off that blocker, bang, stops him right in the tracks. I mean, look at the hip explosion. Y'all, this is a corner. This is a corner. Boom. I mean, there's linebackers that don't tackle that well. I mean, it really is that ridiculous. All right, here we go. Split zone action here with the big tight end. All right, corner or the wide receiver, his job is to peel off and block this end. And then guess what? We need Mansoor to make the touchdown saver. If you don't make this one, he's probably scoring a touchdown, gets him down immediately, goes low on a big body. Here's a play from his true freshman season. Okay, strip it. Look at the ball skills. Look at that. Really, really, really good stuff right there. Almost able to scoop and score as well. And one thing to keep in mind, obviously, you know, Virginia Tech being in the ACC, that's Jordan Travis, right? This is FSU. One of the better offenses in all of college football over the past couple of seasons. Johnny Wilson, who's in the NFL, he's 6'7". Look at this coverage. Look at this. Thing of beauty. Okay? Wow. Wow. Obviously, he's not bulletproof. You have Press Man over here at the top. This same receiver roasted us this year. 3. Press Man, 3rd and 13. Pavia versus single high does the right thing. Start off looking left. You're going right all the way. Obviously, at the beginning of this rep, receiver actually gets physical with the DB. So he gets Delane off balance, swims over the top, and Delane is just beat. Okay? Doesn't help that the pocket is pristine, and Delane does a good job staying with the rep and making this catch as difficult as possible. But, there are some of these. But this is what I love about him. On 3rd and Murfreesboro here, guess what? Receiver on the same drive tries to do the same thing. Puts his hand right into Delaney's chest, but guess what? He doesn't allow himself to get off balance. Notice this time he opens the gate just a little bit, so he's not getting pushed back. So 3 thought he could get him off balance again. That's not what happened. So Pavia once again sees that the safety help is over here. Give Virginia Tech's defense a lot of credit for trusting Mansoor to come back and make this play. And guess what? Pavia makes the right decision. Hey, we're going to try this again. And look at this. I mean, you really can't play DB any better than this. I mean, he is all over him, and they try to back shoulder it, and it's just thrown way out of bounds, okay? And he pops right back up, normally a good sign of athleticism.
Safety, I definitely say it's a very cerebral part of the game. You have to know everything. It's like, besides the middle linebacker, you dang near the captain of the team, and you control how everything goes. So the safeties make calls to the corners. Versus corner, I say it's very easy compared to safety as far as play calling and stuff like that. You got deep thirds, quarters, stuff like that. But, when you got safety, you have to worry about run fits and containing the quarterback and filling this zone. So that transition for me was very well, and I feel like I could still do both, at this point. So I feel like it brings more of an asset to my game.
Alrighty, so I'm going to give you my final grade of Mansoor Delane. So that quote, full question, answer, whatever, was from his freshman year. Okay, that was after he played 400 snaps of football. And since then, he has played over 700 snaps in each of the last 2 seasons. So the first big positive is up to this point in his career, he has been extremely, and I mean extremely durable. And, man, his football IQ is off the charts. I can't tell you how many times over the past couple of years the LSU DBs just didn't do the right thing, okay? Football IQ is really good, and it's infectious. So a guy that understands the nuances, once again, that was him talking as a freshman, is really, really, really impressive. Now, one thing I will say that is a bit of a red flag is his only game where he had an atrocious coverage grade was actually this one versus Vanderbilt. That's it. Every other game, the coverage grade, I think outside of, the Duke game per PFF, was really good. Obviously, he's not a perfect prospect, but I do think if he would have entered the NFL draft, he would have been, I would guess, a 3rd, 4th-ish round pick. And he was obviously very coveted. So this was another case where LSU obviously paid up to go get someone. So that is also a very good sight to see.
Keep going, keep putting my foot on the gas.
We continue this transfer portal medley with Barion Brown, who's already making headlines at LSU training camp. And look at this reverse-ish touchdown. Are you kidding me, Barion? So we want to shout out our partners at Laborde Therapy Center, 5 different locations throughout the Lafayette region. Check them out for all your physical therapy needs at labordetherapy.com. Let's go. One thing I really like about Barion Brown is the 3-year producer thing. As a true freshman, he was very freaking good. Now, what's funny about this is his best game actually came at home versus Kentucky, But it wasn't this game. It was actually his true freshman game when he went for 145 yards versus a national championship Bulldogs defense. And here was that game. Now, I understand a lot of you are like, well, what does that mean? All right, we care about what happened lately. Well, that's true. We should put extra weight on what you have done, obviously, in your very most immediate season. But to do this as a true freshman means you have raw talent. One thing I like about Brown, his best games came versus the best team. So we mentioned best freshman game versus national championship Georgia. Best sophomore game versus top 10 nationally ranked defense Clemson. And you see here, he can give you something as a possession, move the chain receiver. Of course, as you guys saw in the beginning, a lot of reverses gadgets, right? We obviously did a lot of this with Xavier Thomas last year. Quick handoffs, little jet sweep tosses, quick pitches, quick whatever. He turns a corner, and he's got some alpha mentality. Now, I will say he can't get a little overboard with the trash talk. He will border on the line of a flag, but the dude is a playmaker. And then obviously in the same game, had a kickoff return for a touchdown. So he had a receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown, and kickoff return touchdown all in the same game. And the simple truth is he is the best kickoff return guy at maybe since Trendon Holiday. Look, every time he touches a football in the kick return game, it can be a house call. And this was not an easy kickoff return. Obviously, you have to make a guy miss who had outside leverage on the blocker. Doesn't matter. He has that speed that eliminates angles. So he was able to house this one. And, man, it is a huge benefit to LSU special teams now that they have three what I would consider to be very good return guys in Xavier Thomas, Aaron Anderson, but Barion Brown is definitely the best of the three. So if he was so potent as a freshman and a sophomore, why did we see a regression in receiving statistics as a year 3 junior? Well, a lot of it was quarterback play, right? Brock Vandegrift is not as good as Leary, and Leary, of course, isn't as good as Will Levis, but part of it also is Dane Key, right? Barion Brown was on an offense with another really, really, really good player in Key. But I do want to point out that, like the last 2 seasons, his best game this year came against the team I felt was the best on Kentucky's schedule, which was Ole Miss. And this was the biggest catch arguably in the SEC this season. 4th and 7. Yes, a small little push-off, but he made this play. And, of course, Kentucky would go on to score the game-winning touchdown. Not only did he make this play, he cuts back on a dime and is able to turn this into an even more explosive gain. So, once again, I know that sounds like hyperbole, but this ended up being the biggest upset in the SEC this year. And if this play wasn't made, it never would have happened, and Ole Miss probably is in the playoffs. So, man, this guy still did something. He still showed some glimpses of brilliance, and obviously this Kentucky team was just not really all that great. So, man, I like him as a kickoff returner. Now, this obviously is a return that he probably doesn't want to see the light of day because it was the kicker who made the touchdown saver here. But, man, you see the potential. Now, let's break this down. He's got some nuance to his game. So, you're showing a play-action fake right here, and you'll see this is actually really well designed by Bush Hamdan, their offensive coordinator. Jet sweep motion here. This backside safety's run responsibility is this B gap. So what you're showing here with the running back to the right side is a potential run to the left. But watch what Barion Brown does. He sells that he is going to be blocking the safety, and Marshall, number 3 right here, is thinking, hey, I got to help fit this run as well. But watch what Barion Brown does. Off the play action, and it's actually a flea flicker here, he's running behind the safety. Now, once again, this was more so play design, if anything, that got him open here. But you do see the speed, right? You do see him making these deep catches, kind of like our Nic Anderson film study, even though some of these touchdown catches are wide open, at least he's comfortable making these deep plays. And by the way, Nic Anderson film study floating in the top right corner of your screen. Brown has such elite speed, and even though his route running isn't the absolute cleanest, man, you can see right here, head down, selling vertical versus Everett, who is a decent corner. And watch this, he turns him around on this deep out, okay? And man, it's just nasty what his speed can do to a defense. And once again, his route running is going to hopefully get even better. And this was a piece of the LSU offense that I felt was missing. The quick wide receiver screen game, right? He is really, really, really good at these types of plays. Now, you get a good block, but notice he catches his football right in stride and gets vertical. You do get really, really, really good blocking, and he does a good job reading these blocks and picking up yards after contact, okay? Now, I will say I feel when I've watched him that there are instances where he can turn something a little bit more special than it actually is. So let's take a look at this play. 7 right here. I think this is Buren or Muhammad, either one. These Texas DBs were one of the biggest, not one of the biggest surprises in the SEC, but no one thought that they would be as good as they are, and they were very, very, very good, and they had injuries. So on this second and Louisville here, I probably shouldn't use Louisville. That's Kentucky's main rival. There's going to be some Wildcat fans. What's a small town in Kentucky? Second and Frankfurt. Is that's a Kentucky town? Either way, it's a long piece of yardage here. He's able to get behind this corner here, make this catch, but while he did have to wait on it, once again, if he is hit in stride, he's probably housing this. I do think in this spot, he could have done more to make him miss and get vertical, especially if you're down by 17, right? Instead, he just runs directly out of bounds. How about Barion Brown as a blocker? It's not really what he does, right? Nic Anderson, I think, is the better blocker of the guys that they've brought in. As you can see, he kind of took this blocking play off, which I'm actually okay with to a certain extent, because a lot of the plays that they used with him in the run game was him just running vertically, which I actually prefer to do with a speed receiver, because if you're running vertically, you're taking a corner out of the box and potentially taking a safety out of the box. So this really isn't too important for a player like him, but you would like to see him be an overall better blocker. It's not terrible by any stretch of the imagination, though. And here's another one. Now, once again, he does have some good blocking reps, and I prefer to use him as a clear-out player on run plays anyway. And by clear-out, I mean just run vertical. But right here, obviously, this is, it just is a whiff. All right, so the biggest negative, and it wasn't as bad this past season, but it is something, are the drops and the fumbles. So before the season, 11 drops and 3 lost fumbles. And you saw all the amazing things he did in this Clemson game. In fact, after this mistake, he would score another touchdown. But I want you to see this, man. The ball security here has to be better. It wasn't like this was some unfreaking believably strong punch. We need you to be able to hold on to this rock, and this ended up giving Clemson the lead. Here was one in 2023 versus Kentucky, obviously back at the end zone, so there's no need to be worried about running after the catch. Just catch the football, and it was dropped, and they had to kick a field goal. Alrighty, so this is from this season, obviously the same competition, and kind of like that Clemson mistake, Barion Brown went off in this game. Obviously, he had a kickoff return for a touchdown in this game. We already saw the touchdown he had. Kentucky's running a dagger-ish concept of vertical here and a post-dig-ish behind it. And you'll see that Brock Vandagriff makes a really good throw in a pocket, 2-minute drill. And this is not the easiest catch. This ball is humming, but it goes right through him, and it's a pick going the other way.
Hey.
That was good. Thanks, guys. Oh, thank you.
Look at Barion Brown being a gentleman, helping her up. You love to see it. Hopefully we see more of that from Brown. Look, are there some concerning things in this talent evaluation? Yeah, I mean, we talked about it earlier. I mean, I was blown away at how much Dane Key outproduced Barion Brown. Now, one thing I will include is Key did have a game and a half on Brown as Barion missed his first game of the year after a small injury versus Tennessee. But it is interesting because as year one true freshman, Brown easily outproduced Key. Then last year, in year two, Brown was the third highest producing player. And then last year, of course, was the number 2 receiver. But Jimari Macklin actually challenged Barion Brown as the number 2 overall option in this offense. Now, how does this fit in with LSU? Well, the first thing, obviously, special teams. He obviously outproduced basically everyone in the SEC in terms of returns over the past couple of seasons. So that is an absolute massive positive. I understand Aaron Anderson or return a kick for a touchdown last season, but Barion Brown needs to be the guy. He is one of the best kickoff return artists I think I've ever seen in the SEC. But there's plays like this where, you know, you're getting this screen right here, you get a good block, and I need this tackle to be broken, right? Now, obviously, it was a good trip-up shoestring, but man, if you're breaking this with your speed, I think he's gone. I think he's beating him. So, like we said earlier, there were some yards left on the field when I watched him, right? A little too go down easy, if you will. Now, this overall is a massive positive, and I do want to share something that will be quite jarring and why it's very misleading just to look at raw statistics. This was a dreadful Kentucky offense this season with some very inconsistent offensive line play, but most notably inexperienced quarterback play. In Barion Brown's first 2 seasons, he played with Leary, who played a lot of snaps, and obviously Will Levis, who played a lot of snaps. Something else is Kentucky under Mark Stoops has always been a run-based school, right? Barion Brown's true freshman season, Chris Rodriguez. Last season, Ray Davis. So both of those running backs, of course, are both doing really nice things in the NFL. So, look, this has always been a run-first offense. And something else as far as being bullish on Barion Brown for LSU is the overall raw snap total. So LSU ran 884 plays this season, which is really on the high side, where Kentucky ran 800, which is somewhat about normal, right? It's somewhat high. But where it gets crazy are the raw pass attempts. So Kentucky this past season was bottom 4 in the SEC in raw pass attempts in the low 300s, where LSU threw the football 500 times. Now, that number, of course, is very, very, very high, and that is what will excite Barion Brown. Brock Vandagriff was kind of a runner, right? Garrett Nussmeier loves to throw the freaking football. So you go from where you were at Kentucky to an offense that had 180 more passing attempts and 84 more total snaps. You are going to have an unfreaking believable productive season if you could beat out the other receivers in the room. So that's part of why Barion Brown made this move, because you go to a quarterback that is a wide receiver's dream, one that doesn't scramble and one that looks to actually throw the football. Are you concerned at all about this? I'm not. I think this is going to be really good. And the thing is, with Aaron Anderson back, and then, of course, also bringing Nic Anderson, he doesn't have to be the guy, right? This can still be a very successful transfer if he, like these last couple of seasons, is the number 2-ish guy. So as far as field stretching, that's also going to potentially help out our running game as well. Let's go! Everything. LSU gets them a new center from the transfer portal, Mr. Braelin Moore. We're going to break down some of his tape and I'll tell you where I am here in just a moment. I want to start off with a very good rep versus the only SEC team he went up against, which, of course, was the season opener versus Vanderbilt. One thing I really like about him is he is a very heady player. So you have a twist stunt right here where there is a zero nose over the top of him. He starts to feel that this nose is coming over here, and then the guard picks him up, and then he peeks around and sees the twisting DT come around. I can't tell you how many times twisters over the past couple of seasons were able to go through unblocked. This guy's coming through unblocked, but at least we picked up this player, and guess what? Because we picked up that twister and was able to keep him out of the passing lane, you get a nice explosive pass play when you are down by 14. You love to freaking see it, baby. All right, so now we get to here, and this is really good run blocking, okay? So we are zone blocking here to the left, and his job right here is to help get a little piece on this double team and then climb to the second level on this backer, right? We really struggled with these kinds of things up the middle of this season, and look at him climb right here, second level, and boom, seals this guy to the outside, and that opens up a wide open hole for the running back to run through. So honestly, as good as the throws and the catches and the runs were on this drive, a lot of this 7 points was on Braelin Moore. All right, let's get to another really good double team. And one thing I'll point out is his first half wasn't as good as his second, right? Now, why is that the case? Well, last year he was actually a left guard, so this is honestly the first ever center reps he's really ever played at Virginia Tech. So he had a somewhat rough first half, and then in the second half, he helps with this double, and look at the pop right here. The running back actually misses the vertical cutback lane right here. When he gets to here, if the running back had actually cut vertically, he's probably getting through here for a pretty nice gain. That's excellent stuff right there. You just need a better cut from 33, who is actually a really good back. All right, so this isn't entirely on him. It comes down to who actually sets the protection. But one thing I did see watching a few different games were a lot of these delayed pressures where there was unblocked A-gap pressure. So this needs to get sorted out. Is the quarterback responsible for this guy? Should we have actually fanned our guard to the left to pick up the A-gap and you pick up this player? With there only being one player, you need to know who is picking him up if he's blitzing or if by design you're actually leaving him unblocked. So there was some of this when watching a few different Virginia Tech games, and that's going to be sorted out because, well, it's the SE freaking C. The good thing is Drones is a really good quarterback, and he was still able to make this very difficult throw. So Braelin Moore is entering LSU as a year 4 player, and this will be his year 3 as a starter. And you could see that overall processing is really good. This block right here is so unfreaking believably difficult. You have a left guard that's pulling around here as part of this elaborate play action fake. Now, a lot of teams do these kinds of play actions where a guard is pulling to help sell that this could be a run to the right. You see how that forces these backers to bite, even though the running back is to this side of the quarterback? The problem is when you do these pulls, it can open yourself to slot corner blitzes and all that coming from the left side. So if there's a lot of pressure coming from this side, that's one less person you have to block it. So watch what Braelin Moore does. He picks up the DT, and then he sees that blitzer coming from the second level. The guard, the right guard, does a good job coming down and picking up this DT. And look at him right here. Bang. Okay, did he get dominated right there physically? Yeah, we don't want to see that, and that's part of it, right? He's not the biggest guy, but he picked it up. And after picking that up, take a look at this pocket. Really, really, really good stuff. And, well, you got to catch this football. 3rd and 6, and this is where he has a little bit of a DJ Chester type of issue, which is the bull rush, right? He's not the biggest, strongest guy in the world. Now, watch what actually happens here. You see that he is getting pushed really deep into this pocket, and there is a backup quarterback into the game. But watch him reset and actually stick with the rep. So this is where it's going to be interesting because, you know, last year with Garrett Nussmeier, he had to throw so many balls because DJ Chester was in his lap. So will Nuss trust Moore to reset and fight his way back into the rep? There's nobody better at this, and albeit he's a left tackle, than Will Campbell. Will give bull rush from time to time, but reset his feet and fight his way back into the rep. So you'll see that this pocket ends up being good. You don't think that at first, though, because there was so much pressure. And if the quarterback here would have stuck it out, now Garrett Nussmeier would be sticking this out, keeping his eyes down the field, and working this backside for the game-tying touchdown, or Garrett would see that this deep over would have eventually opened up. So not the best rep right there, but it was still good. Good enough to tie this game. You take a sack, and then obviously Virginia Tech would go on to lose. All right, let's get to the Miami game. So one of the tougher teams under Virginia Tech's schedule. Now, this block isn't a hard block, but it is the most important block for this play to work because you're getting our left guard pulled over to this side. We need a good, quick down block, and look at how he seals 99 and doesn't allow him to cross face, right? We have done so many film studies this year with LSU's offensive linemen, even some of the better ones on this year's team, allowing the defensive lineman to cross face. Now, they are going to be able to do this, especially if they're stronger than you. But look at how when 99 is starting to cross face and go across this way, Braelin Moore fights like hell to make it as difficult as possible. And look, because he does that, that allowed another player to help seal 99, and that opens up this gap right here for this nice QB power run play. Really, really, really good stuff. All right, I want you to see how well this information gets processed, okay? He is a very heady player. Now, he doesn't really do anything here, but he is so smart doing these small little things correct. I didn't say that smoothly at all, okay? So take a look at what actually happens here. Ball is snapped, and he's trying to find trouble, all right? So you have 2-3 techs, right? So 2 DTs that are on the outside shoulders of the guards, all right? A very unusual alignment. Normally, there is someone in the A-gap or straight head up. So Braelin Moore has a bunch of different options. Obviously, if somebody blitzes through the A-gap, you need to make a play. If someone blitzes through here, you need to make a play. But watch what actually happens. Miami elects to pinch both of these guys, drop them back in hopes that they can get B-gap pressure. It's a very exotic thing that they are trying to pull off. But watch what Braelin Moore does. So he snaps his head to the left and sees that this DT is backing out. All right? So once he sees it back out, look at how quickly, bang, he's now looking to the right to see if this DT might be coming. No, he backs out. All right? So then he snaps his head back to the left, seeing if there's a twister coming. He says, okay, there's no twisters coming through here, all right? And he just sticks with it. That is so good. Like, that is so freaking good, all right? I understand he really didn't do anything, but that snapping heads, right, doing the small little things, finding work, it's really, really, really good stuff. And, of course, you don't actually get anything out of it. So I got to shout out one of PHL's legends. That is Danny Girl. She has been one of the biggest supporters here on PHL, and she has been begging to find powerful centers. Obviously a big problem since the Cushenberry era. Even Charles Turner, who was pretty much the only good center we've had since then, is the guy in the middle just getting ragdolled. All right? With Braelin Moore, that is a weakness. He is not the biggest guy, and he's going to be going up against bigger, faster, stronger DTs in the SEC, and that's just part of it. And you'll see right here, he's jacked up pretty bad right here. Okay, you'll see that he's getting 2-gapped. It's not good on this 3rd and 1. Now, obviously, with it being 3rd and 1, the defensive lineman can have a better idea of guessing that this is indeed going to be a run play, but this is just the downside of having a smaller center, and he just gets torn up here, and they are stopped short, but they're not because Drones is an absolute beast. So not his best rep right there, but that's just part of it. Alrighty, so let's get to one of the more impressive plays on his tape, all right? Y'all, this is so freaking hard to do. You've got to be very athletic to pull this off. So you're on the road where it's way more difficult to play center. You're with your backup quarterback. In fact, they get down to their 3rd stringer, and he's having to pull around to block a fast guy. All right? This is different than if this is a defensive end. This is a 2nd-level blitzer. Actually, a 3rd level. Looks like this is a safety really steaming down, and he actually times this well. So I want you to see the distance. Look at the freaking distance that he has to cover. I love being able to actually stand up and move around. It's a little bit of a change. So he has to get all the way over here, or else this play is blown up, okay? Now, do you think DJ Chester is making this block? He's not, okay? This is so freaking good. It really is. So he rides him upfield and gives number 3 all day in a bag of chips. And guess what? He's able to hit this huge, explosive touchdown, right? That was all Braelin Moore making that very difficult block under heavy duress. Okay, and we get an end zone angle, all right? It's kind of cut off. Now, this will give you a good idea of where he had to go. He was here. He was right here at the snap, and now you would think he's the right tackle, all right? Riding a single digit upfield. Really good stuff. Doesn't allow him to cross face easy. That's really, 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 really beautiful bean footage right there. Love to see it. All right, let's get to a good run block. Obviously, Manny Diaz, the head coach of Duke football, one of the best defensive coaches in all of college football. Okay, take a look at this double right here. All right, good freaking stuff. All right, man, this is good. This is really, 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 really good stuff. And he's able to drive this guy back, and then we're trying to run to the left, so let's seal him to the left. We're able to wall him off, and look at all that extra distance. 91 is all the way back in Baton Rouge. I mean, he's down here hanging out with me. Really, really, really good block, and obviously a very vital ACC game to try and get to bowl eligibility. All right, so we get to this Hail Mary, and this is just a disaster. Obviously, in this spot, you're not thinking that they're going to bring everyone, but they bring everyone. This is how Hail Mary defense should be run, okay? Bring the entire house. And with the third-string quarterback in, guess what? We have all types of A-gap pressure, all right? And he just gets overwhelmed. This guy gets through, and this guy is able to get through as well. Once again, these double mug, a little too many unblocked A-gap pressures for me when watching him, but that could be sorted out, right? Your center is oftentimes only as good as your guards. So who his guards are going to be to the left and right of him are going to be so big. But as you can see overall, I really liked what I saw. So, what do we make of Braelin Moore? First, before I give you the God's honest truth about how I feel about him, I'm currently in a hospital where my father-in-law underwent a procedure earlier today. It actually went well. So we still have, obviously, a long way to go. This is a huge hospital. There's nobody in here, or it would be kind of awkward if somebody was just, like, sitting in the corner over here. But I appreciate all the prayers and love and you guys working with my schedule. And I wanted to get a video out. So, yeah, let's go. Now, shout out to Ben. Shout out to everyone that supported. If it's in your heart's desire, drop a Venmo, Cash App, all that good stuff. Most of the money I make on this channel is through your donations. It goes a long way. And special shout out to Zion Imaging, NOPOD, NoOffSeason.com, and so on. Okay. The reason why I spent so much time on the Virginia Tech Vanderbilt game is because you guys are, worried about SEC level competition. And Vanderbilt ended up being, of course, one of the better teams on Virginia Tech's schedule. And, we did the film study on Braelin Moore's teammate, Mansoor Delane. He had a rough game versus Vanderbilt. You have to keep in mind, though, the part of the reason why I hated using this game for Braelin Moore as a big part of the film study is that this was his first game as a center. His season before, he was a left guard. So that's actually a really good thing because he gives you a lot of experience. And let's just say DJ Chester has this magical leap. Well, you could put Braelin Moore at left guard. So it's very impressive that this guy has over 1,300 snaps of Power 4 experience. Now, once again, it is the ACC. The defensive linemen in the ACC, they're good. They're not as good as they are in the SEC. So you do worry about that. And obviously, on this rep in particular, you do worry about some power and some finish. Right here, obviously, that wasn't a good block on 4. He was able to scrape over the top and eventually go make this play. Like I said, this Virginia Tech first half was tough. But once again, this was, his first game at center. Man, he's good. I mean, I really do think he's good. And this basically, as far as the mental aspect of it, I think he's going to be fine. It's just going to come down to the physical aspect of playing against just better players on a week-in, week-out basis. He is by far, though, the single most important transfer for LSU because what they had last year at center was unacceptable. Now, once again, I've said this in every single live stream that we have done on PHL. None of what I have said over the past year has been personal towards any lineman, but it was on Brian Kelly and the coaching staff not having a better option at center or just someone else at center readily available to try. It was such a huge liability, okay? You could go throughout the rest of the SEC. DJ Chester was by far the lowest graded center in the SEC, especially of these centers who were every down starters, right? So the fact that LSU was able to go find someone, win a competitive recruiting battle versus a guy with all this experience is so freaking huge for this offensive line. Let's go!
I feel like I'm a very smart player.
Does Patrick Payton solve Brian Kelly's pass rush issue? Brayton Swinson out the door. As many of you know, he was absolutely phenomenal. And today, at the end of this video, we'll answer a very important question. Is this the best defensive transfer portal bring in for this crop? So you'll see right here, Patrick Payton has an array of pass rush moves. This offensive tackle oversets, leans, he spins to the inside, and then has the length to shoestring the quarterback before he could break contain. So this is a very awkward play against the run, and he is unblocked here. But his balance is ridiculous. Look at this. He squeezes underneath this really big offensive lineman, and he's still able to make the tackle on a decent running back in Phil Maffa. You'll see that a pulling tight end comes around here, and it leaves Patrick Payton in a very advantageous one-on-one position. Once again, if he's going up against tight ends, he whips him almost every single time. Good rip move right here to force a lot of pressure and get this completion for a huge negative gain, right? That's just really, really, really good stuff. Obviously, he couldn't quite bring him down. Castellanos, ironically, that's a portal play. Payton now with LSU, that QB is now Florida State's QB. So Payton's best attribute when it comes to deflecting passes, or in this case, kicks, he is as good as it gets, right? For some reason, some of it is just luck, but a lot of it is just his ball skills. He is really good at getting in an alley to deflect passes. All right, so 4th and 2, game on the line right here. And guess what? Clemson has exactly what they want, right? Double slants versus man-to-man coverage. And if you deflect this pass, it ends the game. Once again, all right, I want you to see this. All right, you'll see that Klubnik sees Patrick Payton is in the window, but you notice he didn't actually time his jump correctly, and he was still able to partially deflect this pass and end the game. Really, really, really good stuff. All right, here he is going up against Emory Jones, so a professional offensive tackle. Obviously, this Jaden Daniels guy turned out to be okay. Once again, right in the passing lane and just bats it straight up into the air. I have watched football for a very long time. I don't remember a college defensive lineman better than that. And the thing about some of his bats is oftentimes it deflects directly up into the air, which can only be a good thing for the defense, right? That leads to interceptions. And when a ball is batted up this high, there's not going to be an offensive player that's going to be able to run with it after the catch. So it is just ridiculous watching him do this over and over and over again. We get to this play right here versus Clemson, and one thing that you do notice about Payton is when you leave him unblocked, he's going to make you pay, whether you're doing zone read stuff. He just makes plays, and there he is once again deflecting a pass. All right, so here's a big one on 3rd and 7. Florida State underman. This is the undefeated Seminole team. He stops his rush and once again just times it perfectly. And in this instance, the receiver had the DB beaten pretty badly, as you could see. Now, there might have been a safety here. But if that gets completed, this is a football game. But, I mean, it's ridiculous. One area where he really shines are on stunts. This is a twist stunt to the inside. LSU's going to be doing a lot of this, right? So they brought in Jimari Butler. If you want to see the film study on Jimari Butler, he was involved in a lot of twists and in a lot of situations, whereas an end, you're actually playing essentially defensive tackle and you're getting a matchup versus a guard or a center. So you can see they don't pass this stunt off clean, and Payton is able to get through the middle here and get his hands on the football, right? This would have been a bang-bang 3rd and 6 play, but this forces a punt. So in studying Payton, one thing I wish I would have seen more of is him just beating an offensive tackle one-on-one, and that's what he does here. But, there's not a whole lot of edge bending where he's just beating a guy to the punch. Now, this technically qualifies as that because this offensive tackle just gets absolutely mauled right here by Payton. It does help that Jared Verse is also collapsing this pocket. That's why, he was a big-time rookie this year in the NFL. But this is something I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with Payton. Now, this will sound like a put down, but it's really not, because some ends struggle with this. Payton is really good when he's going up against tight ends, okay? So here are two of the better tight ends. This is Georgia's Oscar Delp and Lawson Lucky. So he makes Delp miss, and then he is flying around this edge right here. He makes Lucky miss, and Carson Beck trying to throw a bomb. Look at what he does. Bang! Able to get the strip sack right here and the fumble recovery, okay? Or he barely missed out on the fumble recovery. This will also sound strange. Payton is very good at the shoestring tackle, right? There are so many instances where he is bringing guys down by their feet, right? It is hard to make these plays. And in the open field, right, if he gets around there, obviously it's probably still a negative yardage play, but that's an extra 5 yards when you're able to bring him down clean like that.
I know the ins and outs of the defense.
All right, so there are some downsides to his game. He's not the absolute biggest guy, and normally when he's unblocked, whether it's a zone read or a reverse or anything, he's a pretty deadly player. But watch what actually happens here, okay? So he does a good job, obviously, carrying out his assignment, boxing everything in. But what can happen is because he's not the biggest guy, he could get ragdolled at times, right? So you can see he loses his balance, and he gets put to the turf right here on this run play. Now, once again, he carried out his assignment, but obviously in the SEC, everybody's just so much bigger, faster, and stronger. So one area where he does struggle some is just bending an edge. Now, once again, I could get into a long debate about offensive tackles and where they actually line up. So this helmet is supposed to be even with the hip pad of the center, so it makes it that much harder if they are given this extra bit of depth to actually turn the corner here. But even with that said, as an edge bender, that's not necessarily his strong suit. Sometimes his pad level could get a little high, and he can get a little stiff and static with his moves. And you'll see that this is not a spot where we want him pretty much dead center on an offensive lineman, because strength isn't necessarily his strongest suit either. And that kind of started to show itself last year when he played, because these types of rushes are more effective when this side is being collapsed. Now, what changed from 2023 to 2024? Well, Jared Verse wasn't this guy. So if Jared Verse is pushing this tackle back, it helps you out as well. So you'll see that he's just kind of caught up right here with this move, and the tackle just has him absolutely cooked right there, even though this ends up being an incompletion. So what do we make of Patrick Payton? Well, let's be honest, okay? We mixed in a good bit of his 2023 highlights. So not this past year, but the year before. And remember the play we just showed you where it was tough for him to collapse that pocket? Well, right here, he himself does a better job of bull rushing versus 62, who really wasn't that good of a right tackle. But you see here to the left side that the pocket is being collapsed here from the rest of the Florida State defensive line. So while Payton is indeed whipping this right tackle, all of this being collapsed in helps. So with Payton, for him to truly be effective, for him to reach his ceiling, you're going to need Pyburn, you're going to need McKinley and all those guys to step up as well, because he is a very collaborative pass rusher, whether it's pushing in a pocket or twisting around. But as a simple, I am bending the edge, beating you off the jump right tackle, or defensive end or edge player, whatever you want to call it, I don't think he's that type of player. Now, he can be. He obviously has the skill set to do that, but I don't think this is necessarily a one-for-one switch with Braden Swinson, who was indeed a very good edge bender when it comes to getting around and making plays. So I'm going to give you the pros and cons after watching a good bit of his 2023 and 2024. One thing you didn't see today was his 2022 film. So he was a 2021 recruit. He redshirted in his first season. And then in 2022, when he actually played, he was the newcomer of the year in the ACC. The first is his PFF grades are very, very volatile. So last year was by far his worst year per PFF grading. But not only is that the case, but when you look from a week-to-week basis, the grades are also very volatile. You'll see a lot of elite grades, and then you also see some not-so-great grades. The next thing I would also bring up is I don't think Patrick Payton really wanted to be at Florida State. And I'm not just saying that because the team last year was an absolute abject disaster. But even before the season began, I listened to a few of his interviews, you could tell that he was kind of on the fence about coming back to Florida State last year. And it makes a lot of sense, right? 2023 ended with a very sour taste in everyone's mouth. All those players opted out of the bowl game. Patrick Payton did not. But then he thought about going to the NFL. Then he decided to come back. Then in the portal. And he shared in an interview, I think it was with Will Compton, Busted with the Boys, that there was some NIL stuff regarding coming back to Florida State last year. So now he gets a fresh start. And look, you can talk to as many people as you want at Florida State. I actually have. Their opinions on him is mixed, right? They felt last year wasn't his best, which is true. I would agree with that. But, man, the positives for me outweighs the negative. Even though there are some of those red flags that you see here, I cannot get over how underrated batted passes are when it comes to college football. I think it affects the quarterback more than we would like to think when you have an edge that plays with that much length and is in the passing lane. Because the one thing about a batted ball, and I will say this till I'm blue in the face, I've never seen an end bat passes better than Patrick Payton at the collegiate level, is that it leads to turnovers. It leads to very negative things, and it can disorient a quarterback, especially quarterbacks that will play next year that like to get very involved with quick games, like quick slants, quick screens. Payton is really, really, really good at that because of his length, because of his playmaking instincts. It truly is there, and that also applies to twists and stunts that you can run with them. So, for me, I like this bring. Obviously I love this bring in. Right, the potential is really through the roof. But I would like to see hopefully a more refined pass rush game, and I would like to also see how he holds up against the run, going up against, to me, probably better offensive tackles in the SEC next year. But when it comes to running and chasing guys down, right here he actually didn't bring the QB down, but he almost did. I'm telling you, the guy has some real ability. And one thing I'm really going to like about him going to LSU is that Kevin Peoples is going to be his coach. And we saw what Kevin Peoples did last year. He made every end on our team better. So Payton getting this coaching, it's going to be hard coaching. Peoples is a different style of coach. If he takes the coaching well, I literally could see another 8-sack season from Patrick Payton. So I'm really excited to see what he's going to do, and we'll see where it goes from here. Let's freaking go!
Come back full circle, don't it?
Jimari Butler new defensive end that has joined LSU. We're going to do a film breakdown of what he brings to this team, but it's important to note that he's not just a defensive end. So LSU loves in these situations to put defensive ends over offensive guards in clear pass rushing situations. So it's 3rd and 8. Obviously, the Colorado offensive line over the years just really hasn't been anything special. But look at this rip move to the inside to get the guard off balance. But what makes this very interesting is he also has to take on the block of the running back. And after doing that, he's able to make this sack. Now, the reason why this was a very important sack is if Sanders would have had time, he could have worked here, obviously, to the vertical through the middle of the field open coverage. So really, really good play right there from Butler. Also does play some just stand-up end. Obviously, this is, once again, a clear passing situation versus a team that passes a lot. And this does end up being a good gain for Colorado, but that's not the point here. Rushing to the interior is one of his big strengths. So they're running a twist stunt. This backer's coming around here. His job is to create havoc up the middle here, and he does just that. But once again, it's Travis freaking Hunter. He was the best player in college football last year. So this does end up being a nice gain, but still a good rush from Butler. All right, here we go. Higher level of competition. The Ohio State Buckeyes. Jimari Butler going up against the Natty champions. Watch this OT over set right here, and bang, he catches him leaning, just goes right by him, and he's attacking Will Howard's blind side. And like we said, when it comes to closing down QBs and actually bringing them down, he's pretty solid at it. So a really nice play. And one thing you'll notice is he normally beats his guys to the inside. Now, on this rep, now, once again, this is not Ohio State's best left tackle. I like the fact that he got back into the left tackle's body. That way, it kept Howard in the pocket. And then, once again, he chases him down and almost shoestring him right there. But he totally disrupted that play. You love to freaking see it. So LSU had a bigger issue with this during the last year of Matt House, but it was still a problem last year versus quarterbacks that could run some. So you'll see right here, Butler has a really good rush out of a 3-tech again, but it's also 3rd and 8. And guess what? There's a lot of room for the quarterback to run. So watch him retrace his steps and make this play right here. Bang. As you can see, he makes a lot of shoestring tackles versus mobile QBs. So here you go. Guard tries to ride Butler upfield, okay? And you see he gets the guard off balance, and he's past him. But instead of just running upfield, he stops immediately and retraces. Look at him club this guard past him. That's as good as it gets, folks. And obviously makes a really nice play here. And making that play that quickly forces him to kick a field goal. All right, so I think this is what excited Blake Baker the most when watching Butler. It's plays like this. How many times did you see LSU this year get exotic in these kinds of situations where there's only one down lineman here and you really don't know as an offensive line where the pressure is coming from? And another thing Blake Baker's going to want to do is do this versus 5-man protections. So trusting that one of these guys is going to make a play. So what does Nebraska like to do? Well, they actually back out 2 of the guys here, and it's just a simple twist stunt over the middle. They do not pass it off well, and Butler times this perfectly, okay? Watch him act potentially like he is just going right here, but then at the last second, just curl around this inside DT right here, and he just rips right through there, and that should have been a holding call because there's no way he's getting yanked down right there. Now, they missed a hold right here, but this should have been hands to the face right there and a first down, but they don't call it. All right, so 2 missed calls right there, and you can see Illinois was wanting the call, but that was Butler rushing to the inside and making a big play. Okay, here's just a regular run stop, all right? As you can see, Nebraska is outnumbered in this 2-high shell right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's no one to account for the running back here. So in this spot, we honestly just need you to stop, right? They have us outnumbered here. DT gets dominated, so Butler, we need you to come in and save the day to make this simple tackle, and he does. Okay, 1st and 10, and what Nebraska decides to do is a run stunt to the left with the blitzer coming off the edge right here. So I need you to cut in violently. This is your new contained guy right here. And watch what he actually elects to do. He decides to cut through this A gap. Now, if you're going to do this, this DT needs to be going to the opposite side of the center. So that's what he elects to do. And watch this play, all right? Beats him right here with the swim move over the top. All right, if you're going to do this, you've got to make this tackle, right? Because you deoccupied your gap. And guess what? He doesn't make the tackle, but he does slow 21 down enough. Once again, he's a very talented shoestringer. So not a bad run fit, but if you are going to cut to the inside, we do prefer you going ahead and bring him down. Let's get to probably his most unique alignment in this game. Standing outside backer, once again, Nebraska showing a very light box. 2-point stances, a corner in on this trips bunch. Safeties still pretty far back. Obviously, this one more so in the box here. But if you're Illinois, smash mouth Brett Bielema team, you have to like your numbers over here to the left side. But watch what actually happens. He ragdolls this tight end. Now, this is more poor tight end form, if anything. But he gets held, keeps his balance, and makes this play. All right? Really, really, really good physical stuff right there. This is not a good rep. All right, this is a rep directly after the great run stop you saw. This time, the tight end is to the right side to have you more spread out, and they're running directly at you. Now, this is a more difficult play. We'll give you the end zone angle here in just a second, but he gets a little too wide right here versus 74, and this hole is gaping right here for 3 to run through. So you do not want that. Once again, this is not easy, all right? So he takes on this block, and obviously he allows 74 to get into his body, and you see he's just too high right here. What I think happened was because it is 2nd and 10 after a really good run stop, he was guessing that this was going to be a pass when it's just a simple zone blocking play to the left. So pad level's high, and he gets pushed out of here. And remember earlier he did a good job retracing the steps. Because 74 is a bigger player, and he was a good player for Illinois this year, it's tougher for him to retrace and do that patented shoestring tackle right there. So, all right, another thing I like about Butler, you can drop him back into coverage. It's not really his game, but he does drop back. And guess what? This should have been a pick. And once again, Indiana's offense this year was really good. But once again, bang, hits him right in the arms, but he is able to drop back. And now when you watch Butler, it's important to note, his final year of his career, he switched back from 1 and 10. So there you go. I believe this is from 2 years ago. Drops back into coverage, and the quarterback doesn't see him. Okay, he thinks it's still a 4-man rush. We just need you to make this pick. But it does show you some versatility there, that he can do that. Okay, and once again, you'll see it right here. Reads the eyes of the quarterbacks. And once again, it looks more difficult from this angle, but he does make kind of sort of the play. And for those that don't know, a 3-tech is you basically lining up on the outside shoulder of the guard, okay? And that's interesting. You know, he didn't rush a whole lot out of the defensive end position, but on these 3rd and 8s is where he was very good. This was versus Northwestern. He's able to rip and get around this guard and finish the sack, right? If you don't finish this sack, it's off to the races right here, and he makes a really, really, really nice play. Okay, this is versus Illinois 2 years ago. This time he goes to the inside with a swim move. Now, I relate to this because this is what I did when I played football. I was a undersized three-tech pass rusher, and to me, that's my favorite place to rush the QB. Now, he doesn't make the play right there, but he does force a lot of pressure, and he gets Altmaier running here. It's just really, really, really good stuff. Tamarcus Cooley, is this the best player in this 2025 LSU transfer portal class? I have got so much to say about this young man coming in from the Wolfpack that I want to get to in this video. Let's start with this play right here. I mean, my goodness gracious. The first thing about Cooley that makes him very interesting is when you think of a safety, you tend to think of a safety as this type of player, right? A box kind of Caleb Downs, Jamal Adams kind of guy. But Cooley last year really stepped up for NC State as kind of a nickel, or what many would consider the star role, which to me is more difficult and even more important in the modern game. And this honestly is not an easy play. So this was a very exhausting track meet type of game in the rain or kind of dreary, whatever. So to get through this traffic right here on this vertical concept is really good. He also does a good job getting his hand on this receiver to create some leverage, and then he stays with them basically stride for stride. He doesn't panic as he's trying to locate the football. He finds the football and then high points it better than the actual wide receiver. Cooley, are you kidding me? This is what TM7 and PP7 used to do. Wow. Here we go. Now, we get him in a more box kind of role. Now, he's not necessarily playing a safety because if he was the nickel in this defense, as you can see, there's only two receivers. So he is in the box now. If you need him to be a box type of player, take a look at these ball skills right here. This is a lot of edge rush coming right here. It floats up into the air, and he's able to redirect and make this ridiculous catch off the deflection. Look at that right there. That is a thing of beauty. Now, this is what's really interesting about him when I watched him. It seemed like his teammates really enjoyed playing with Tamarcus Cooley. So really excited about that as well. We could use some leadership in our secondary. Let him know, baby. Give me a good salute. Look at this, man. I love a good dirty jersey. I love it. Somebody get this man a single digit at LSU. I'm starting to think he's that level of a player. So once again, you'll actually see the rain in the backdrop here. Actually, I thought I did see some. Either way, this is a ridiculous play. I mean, look at that. Keeping the hand under the ball. Wow. 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 Not even the white hat could change this call. Big, big, big play. It's important to not only break down the good plays, but you also have to take a look at the bad ones. Now, once again, this is ECU. Now, they do produce some good players. Keaton Mitchell of the Ravens is with ECU. But still, this is not the highest level of competition. So right here, you'll see Cooley get beat. But when I see you get beat, I want to see how difficult of a play it was for the offense to beat you. Right? So we get to the top of this rep. He's getting very physical with this receiver. This is really good, right? And you'll see there really is no separation, but the quarterback here has all day to throw, and he sees that this receiver has leverage on Cooley on this deep out. But look at where this ball needed to be placed for it to be complete. He couldn't really have covered this any better. And look at the catch and the throw that was needed to be made for that to be complete, right? I don't mind that at all. I really, really, really don't. Could this have been better? Yeah, it can always be better. But look, I mean, how many receivers are making this catch? It's a difficult grab. He almost didn't make it right there. So let's go to a play later in this game. All right, here we go. 3rd and medium. You're down by 13. You really, really, really need to stop, all right? And they are trusting you in man coverage over here, right? It's a clear single high look. The quarterback knows he has man, and this is a matchup he wants, right? So look at this. Pretty much the same route concept, little deep out. And this time, Cooley plays it even better. There's no separation whatsoever, and he is running the route better than the receiver, okay? Now, you see, he practically played it basically the same, but you see, it takes a perfect throw, takes a really difficult catch for it to be complete, and he's all over it, right? It's really, really, really good stuff. One of the best defensive plays in the ACC. The first thing I like about Cooley, football IQ, right? You'll see that he gets very physical with the point man in the trips bunch, all right? So he takes on number 2 right here, the number 2 receiver, and then immediately sees that this is some type of screen. So watch what actually happens. He jumps it better than the receiver, and think of a backdoor cut in basketball. That's exactly what happens here. He overplays it, which, it's so rare that you see something like this in football. He jumps a route, and the receiver's like, okay, this play is dead. I'm going to back cut it, all right? And you'll see that Murphy wanted to throw it right there. So now Cooley is beat. But notice, he doesn't give up on the play. He knows he's coming from behind right here in the blind spot. And he also noticed it's stupid to just come in and kill shot the guy, right? Because you can get a targeting call and so many different things. If you know the receiver's not going anywhere, go for the strip, right? And that's exactly what he does. He rips the football out of the receiver's hands. And there's actually more value in that because there's 12 seconds left to go in the second quarter. You rip it, and that ends up being a 6-point swing as he's able to get this football into field goal range going the other way, right? So basically, in theory, what just happened was a touchdown, right? 3 points going one way, and now you're in field goal range going the other, right? It's such a big, big, big play. Now, of course, in the DB room, they're going to, make fun of him getting caught from behind, but that is so massive for a team that really wasn't that good this year. All right, so must-have game, right? You're playing North Carolina. They're 6-5. You're 5-6. So all that Eastern Carolina stuff you saw, if you don't win this game, you're not getting to a bowl game. All right, now take a look at this. He is taking on a pulling tight end coming through this hole. All right, so watch how he takes on this block right here from a guy who has him by a good 60, 70 pounds. Watch. Bang! Just takes him square on, and man, that's just some really good stuff to then get involved with the tackle. Good stuff right there in the run game. This happened on the very next play, and look, we all make mistakes, right? We try to be as comprehensive as we can. They actually had this played correctly. They're bringing a zero blitz. It's kind of the same thing that you saw just a minute ago of him stripping, except instead of him being right here, he's now right here, and NC State actually has this sniffed out. You just got to make this tackle right here. Okay, see, he's right here with 13, and, you just got to make this play. It's a difficult play because there is just so much space, and they do have the absolute best play call versus this look, right? But, look, overall, he's been a good tackler. That does need to be better. It would also help if someone else could help him out for once, since he was NC State's highest graded defensive player.
There's playmakers all over this defense.
So we now get to the face smasher himself, Jack Pyburn. He joined us not too long ago. Make sure you check out that interview. He's got this guy airborne, baby. Take a look at what he did with the Florida Gators. Let's go. Look, he's actually airborne and is able to fall forward and pick this guy up for the nice goal line tackle, and then on the next play, Florida would force a turnover. So obviously Jack Pyburn makes a really big play right here. He sees a pulling guard and a pulling tackle, so he decides to close down. And once again, there could be a world where on this play he has contained responsibilities. It's really hard to say one way or the other. But whatever the case may be, he chases Dylan Sampson down from behind. And I want you to see how fast he pops back up. That's normally a pretty good sign of athleticism. He not only makes a tackle, look at this. Smooth with it. This right here is by far my favorite Jack Pyburn rep. All right, there are so many different things I freaking love about this play. So the first thing here is Florida is in a lot of trouble on this play, okay? So you'll see that they have a motion. They're trying to get lined up here, and you'll see at the snap that this DT has this A-gap filled. This in Pyburn, his job is to hold the edge right here. But notice, both of your backers are over on this side of the center, and the guy responsible for this B gap is a safety 10 yards away from the line of scrimmage. So Georgia is in a really good spot right here. They like their numbers to run this to the right side, and the safety is flat-footed here, okay? So watch what actually happens. I mean, this is really, really, really elite stuff, okay? So he peeks. Now, that's just how you teach it. Once again, this get-off could be a little bit lower, okay? But Pyburn, with his style, he likes to attack guys square after watching him a good bit. All right, and he peeks around the edge to see where the running back is going. Is he peeling off this way? So once he sees that this running back more than likely is going to go to the inside, it is so hard to cross face against someone that weighs roughly 50 pounds more than you, but that's exactly what he does. Notice he sticks with the block, stays square, and once again, you know, we talked about this last year a lot with this LSU defensive line. I'm not a big fan of defensive line penetration in the run game, especially if they are spreading us out, right? You can over-penetrate. So Pyburn does a good job keeping his heels on the line of scrimmage, crossing face back, and look at this play he makes. Bang, all right? It doesn't look like much, but if he doesn't make this tackle, this guy's getting through here clean. 3, of course, a really good true freshman back for them. And it's, you know, at least a few extra yards, maybe more. And that was such a good play.
And Jack actually broke this play down for us and a few others in our interview.
Yeah, so right here I had a slug technique. Basically, at Florida, it meant that I was A-gap or B-gap to C-gap control. So I have to strike through the V-neck of the tackle, which I love doing. I love just putting hands on them and being able to control the outside. Because I'm, in my opinion, I'm good enough to go against any player and be able to control 2 gaps and 2-gap a player. But that play specifically, we're supposed to 2-gap, guard the inside, and then check outside the C-gap. So I just struck him, ran through him, and put him in the gap. You know, that's kind of the best way that I see to use that technique is to just push him into the gap no matter how big and strong he thinks he is, just attack him.
Dear Lord. That's one thing I really like about him. It seems he really enjoys playing the run. All right, now, once again, it is interesting that he just happened to play a lot of quarterbacks that don't actually ever pull this. So if this gets pulled, you know, you're giving yourself up a lot of yards. So, you know, Florida this year, they didn't play a murderer's row of true dual threat quarterbacks, but it's still really good run fitting. And I know this will come off as so freaking cliche, but he is relentless. I mean, he loves chasing plays down, whether it's at the line of scrimmage or wherever. And you'll see that this play almost goes for a big one. Let's just say this tackle isn't made. Jack Pyburn is potentially making a touchdown saver right here just because he read that screen. It's good stuff. This will be the play that'll get LSU fans really excited. Okay, obviously Marcel Reed, the guy that ended our season here. Watch him keep contained on this edge. Remember, we've been talking about in this film study him, you know, just crashing down and making plays. Look at him take on this block. He's got such a good, strong initial punch. You'll see, you know, throughout this study that bang, bang, okay? Then he sees that this is actually a quarterback sweep out of here, just a little run to the outside. He crosses face, does a good job chopping that arm down and getting outside here. Does a good job by that contained defender to help out. And that's a really, really, really nice play. So Pyburn, more of a run fitter than a pass rusher. We'll get to that in a second. There are some instances, you know, he's going up against, Trey Zune. He's a really good player here. This whole drive from Pyburn wasn't the worst. It wasn't the best either. He almost made a 4th down stop on the play before this. Sometimes with this peaking, he can get a little guessy, right? So he's feeling that this play is going to the inside when he needs to stay outside on this leverage. So he loses his contain trying to get in there to make a play when those guys are already fitting it. And guess what? You give one of the best running backs in the SEC the edge. It ended up being a good enough play from one here, but if he doesn't shoestring him, this is a big gainer. So you have to be careful with that. And yeah, as a pass rusher, once again, they asked him to drop back into coverage. He's going up against one of the better left tackles. I also, let's see. So here he is going up against one of the better left tackles. And once again, with Marcel Reed, you can't be as aggressive as a pass rusher. But there's still a lot to his pass rush game that probably needs work. I do think there is an asterisk next to it, and we'll talk about that right now. So one thing that makes him a semi-difficult eval as a pass rusher is they did ask him to drop back into coverage a lot. This is something that LSU did some with Braden Swinson. Obviously, Matt House did a little more with this. I'm not the biggest fan of having your rushers drop back into coverage, but I understand why you do it some of the time. So his pass rush numbers can be very misleading. I spoke to a Florida source as well that said there was a lot of him dropping back into coverage reps. And, well, you see, it looks bad since he was on the field for a big game, but there was really nothing he could do about that. All right, let's get to a pass rush rep versus Florida State. Here's Pyburn going up against number 76, Washington. Once again, true freshman quarterback, so all of that really helps out in this spot. Now, the first thing that I want to point out here is Jack Pyburn on this play doesn't have the absolute best get-off, right? It is a little high, right? Who gives a rip? Watch what he does after this, okay? He sees that Washington is beginning to lean, and once you get your shoulders this far over your knees, you're just going to fall over. It's just simple physics. You don't need to know the ins and outs of offensive tackle play. So watch what he does. With this right arm, even though the offensive lineman's engaged really well, he chops right here at this elbow. Bang. Okay? Really, really, really good stuff to then tightly turn this edge, and then watch him bring this right arm around to actually strip down. Okay? Notice that right here. Right arm, it didn't just go for the sack, like wrap him up. You put this right arm over the path of where he's actually throwing the football, and that forces this sack. Now, it did help that there was some rush on the other side as well.
So, I have an apology to each and every one of you watching this right now. We did not get to every single transfer to do a film study for them. It's no disrespect to them. There's just only so much time in the day. And there were 18 of them. 18 transfers? Are you freaking kidding me? So if you want more thoughts on all of them, that's why you come to a PHL live stream. I think our lives are better than our film studies, so we'll see you there. Special thanks again to Labor Therapy and Zion Imaging for making PHL special. And we want to team up with you. So if you're a business and you want to link up with us, all the contact information is down below. Click my face right now if you want to see a Michael Van Buren film study that's so freaking deep. It's one of the craziest ones we've done, so check it out. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom! Tonight, we're doing enchiladas.